She has the most beautiful servant's heart. Her heart matches just how gorgeous she is. She is a homeschool mama. She is a masseuse that gives amazing massages. She is outgoing, she is fun. We love her so, so much, and I know all of you love her. Let's give it up for Jamie.
So I had a really difficult time compiling 3 years of life into 15 to 20 minutes, so buckle up. And I'm going to try my best to get through this as efficiently as possible. So first, good morning. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Jamie. I live in Brantford with my husband Nick and our 3 kids. Eden, who is 9, Nicholas, who is 5, and Kayla, who is almost 3. That was me when I was pregnant. When we found out that we were expecting our 3rd child, it came as a huge surprise. We hadn't really been trying for another baby. We had 1 healthy girl, we had 1 healthy boy, and life just really felt complete. But motherhood is full of surprises, right? Sometimes those surprises come with unmet expectations. Maybe for you it wasn't a baby, maybe it was a move, a job loss, an illness. And not all unmet expectations are unwanted. They can be joyful too. Adding a new puppy to the family, surprise party you didn't think you wanted, maybe an unexpected visit from a friend or a family member you haven't seen in a long time. But for us, that surprise came in the form of a new baby. So just by a quick show of hands, how many of us in here have ever said, I don't care if my baby is a boy or a girl as long as they're healthy? Right, I will be the first, so don't be shy. I said that for all 3 of my pregnancies. But there's a portion in Job 2:10 that says, should we only accept the good things from the hand of God and never the bad? And this has really been a life verse for me for many years. So for those of you who don't know that quick little story, that was Job's response to his wife, who pretty much told him to curse God and die. He had just experienced just devastating loss. His children, his home, he lost his friends, his livelihood. And I think a lot of us can sometimes relate to Job's wife, maybe not to the extent of saying that we should just curse God and die, but a lot of us, including myself, can find ourselves in a place of frustration when things don't go our way, or we just feel that we've been dealt a bad hand. As Christians, it's so easy to start feeling, maybe not consciously, but deep in our hearts, like God somehow owes us only the good things in life, or at least what we perceive as good. Now, for those of you who don't know my family, or maybe you just couldn't quite tell from the photo up on the screen, my youngest daughter, Kayla, was born with a diagnosis of Down syndrome. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that her diagnosis fits into this bad category at all. But if I'll be honest, it wasn't something that I ever would have asked for naturally. As mothers, we have this built-in instinct, right? We want our children to be born into a life of ease, free from too many struggles or hardships. I remember the first time that I really had to face the possibility of Kayla's diagnosis, that is my little one in all her perfection. At my 18-week ultrasound, the doctor said that there were some concerning findings, and combined with my age, geriatric age, generally, so that has something. She didn't say that in the appointment, but we know that's what she meant. She told me that I was leaving the appointment that day with a 1 in 5 chance of having a baby born with Down syndrome. I actually don't remember much after that, except that she mentioned that some moms would choose to terminate. There was no hope, there was no encouragement. Even the technician that did the ultrasound hesitated to hand me the paper that had our baby's gender on it, as if for some reason I wasn't going to want to know anymore. And fear really took root that day. Fear for my daughter's life and how little it seemed to be valued by a profession that's supposed to be there to care for her. She didn't even have a diagnosis yet. This was all just speculation. I hadn't got any prenatal testing, and still abortion was mentioned, and the enemy really used that to attack my hope. I spent the remaining months filled with worry. Every appointment, every ultrasound, I found myself praying, Lord, please, can today just be a good day? But it felt like he just kept saying no to me. Every appointment was met with a new undesirable change. Not once did I meet with someone who just took a moment to look me in the eye and to tell me that no matter the outcome, it was going to be okay. The problem was that I was trying to find my hope, though, from the providers. I kept allowing their words to determine my emotions. What I didn't realize then was that he wasn't denying me peace and hope, he was just redirecting me to find it back in him. He just wanted me to be still and to know that he is God. At 37 weeks, an ultrasound showed that Kayla wasn't moving much, and I was sent to the hospital for an induction. When I got there, things quickly became a whirlwind. She had turned breech, and not like the football kind, so there was no way she was coming out naturally. I needed a version to try to turn her, and that was super successful. But minutes later, after being prepped for induction, I started to lose consciousness, and she ended up being delivered by C-section. This was not the birth that I wanted or expected at all. My 2 previous births were as natural as they came. But looking back, I can see God's hand in every single detail, because if she had been born the way that I wanted, neither of us might be here today. After Kayla was born, I just expected those sweet newborn days, but instead of going into a time of oxytocin bliss that we all look forward to, we began what turned into a month-long stay at the NICU. I found myself constantly running back and forth between home and the hospital. I was trying so hard to be present for my other 2 kids while a piece of my heart was living in that NICU room. Then, I guess my body thought more stress might be fun. And about 3 weeks after Kayla's birth, I was diagnosed with postpartum preeclampsia. And I was hospitalized myself while she was still in the NICU. I couldn't visit her, my milk dried up, the postpartum season that I had imagined was just officially gone. When we finally brought Kayla home, I really expected things to feel a lot easier, but they didn't. I struggled with debilitating anxiety, panic attacks, and so much medical PTSD. I entered a season of grief, grieving the life in the child that I had imagined while learning how to live the life that God had given me. I think that all of us in here can agree that when you find out you're pregnant, you start painting this mental picture in your head of what your child is going to be, who they'll be, what their life will look like. And when reality doesn't match that picture, it shakes you to your core. I had to raise a child that the world, till this day, still struggles to fully accept. A child who would often be seen for her disability first before her character. And I had to rethink every single thing that I thought that I knew. I had to be okay with having a child who would be connected to a medical system that at one point made me feel like she was just a burden. I had to accept that all the things that came easy for my other children are going to be incredibly hard for her. And then there was this thought that I might not ever be an empty nester. And it's a season that I'm sure at least all of us in here have thought about. So it's a season when our kids are grown, they're hopefully following the Lord, and they're building these beautiful lives of their own. There were so many moments that I would cry out to God telling him, I cannot do this. The stress, the exhaustion, the overwhelm, the grief, it felt so unbearable, and most days I felt like I was literally barely surviving. And I was convinced that if I kept going like this, that my body was just going to start to shut down. What was amazing, though, is that in that darkness, I also became so close to God. Till this day, I cannot think of a time where he had ever felt so tangible to me. There were nights I could almost feel his presence, and that closeness allowed me to be okay with not being okay. As soon as my heart started to shift, I remember one night in prayer saying, Jesus, if being like this for the rest of my life means that I will know you better, then leave me like this. And I meant it. In the moment, I meant it. But thankfully, he did not leave me like I was. He sustained me, he healed me, he grew me, and he showed me his love in a way that I had never in my life experienced before. Just when I was finally starting to feel myself again, this is probably around the time that Kayla was, I think, 18 months old, I started to feel this deep desire for another child. And trust me, ladies, I know right now how crazy that sounds. After everything that we had just been through, I was like, Lord, this cannot possibly be you. Two of my closest friends were pregnant at the time, so naturally, like any sane woman, I just blamed them for my ovaries going into hyperdrive, because that's how our bodies are functioned, or that's how our bodies function rather. But after a lot of prayer, I realized that this was something much deeper. There was just one problem. I was terrified to be pregnant. After everything that happened with Kayla, the fear, the trauma, could not imagine walking that road again. And so I took it to the Lord and I prayed and I said, God, if this desire is from you, please remove my fear or open a different door. And I'm not kidding. Minutes later, I opened Facebook and I saw a post from a mom of 6. She had just learned that her soon-to-be 7th baby would be born with Down syndrome, and she didn't feel equipped to raise her, and she was looking for adoption resources. The moment I read her words, I just felt this overwhelming sense of peace. I sent her a conversation just to I sent her a message just to encourage her not to try to pursue adoption of any sorts at that point, but one conversation led to another, and eventually we had come to the decision to move forward with adopting her baby. We did not know how we were going to manage 2 children with Down syndrome. But we trusted Hebrews 13:21 that says, may he equip you with everything good for doing his will. I believed that then, and I still believe that now. After 6 long months of paperwork, prayer, preparation, fundraising, we got the call that the baby had been born, and we were just days away from traveling to Tennessee to meet her. And then at the last minute, I received a message that the birth family had changed their minds. These are actually happy tears. You know, I had fallen in love with a child that wasn't mine, and devastated does not begin to describe what I had felt. We had prepared our home and our hearts and our children for her arrival as if I were the one actually giving birth to this baby, and suddenly everything that we expected was gone. Nothing made sense in those early moments. Why would God lead us down this path only to close the door at the very last minute? And even now, I don't have all those answers. But graciously, the Lord gave us a glimpse of his goodness in that situation. That's Parker, or Zoe, as some of you may have remembered her name. A few weeks later, I received a message from the birth mom that said, I don't know if this gives you any comfort. She knew I was hurting. But the Lord used you in a mighty way for our family. Aside from the loving grace you've shown, you've also given me hope in this journey. You've helped me see that there is so much joy in these babies of ours. I know the road won't be easy, but it will be worth it, so thank you. That message reminded me that God's plans are always greater than ours, even when they hurt. And although that adoption didn't happen, our hearts have not changed. We're still pursuing adoption within the Down syndrome community and walking out the calling that we believe that the Lord has placed on our hearts. Over the last few years, I would have not made it through without the Lord and without community. Whether you're standing on top of a mountain or you're struggling in the valley, our personal community is so important. Whether it's friends, family, church, mastering motherhood, a counselor, whatever it looks like for you, find your people. One of the ways that I personally found healing over the last couple of years was by taking the focus off myself a bit and looking for ways to help other moms walking through similar journeys. Every mom who gives birth to a child with special needs faces unmet expectations, every single one. And I know that there's a few that are in here today. When Kayla was about 6 months old, I was desperate for community. And don't get me wrong, I had great friends, I had supportive family, but the truth is that only a mother who's raising a child with Down syndrome can really understand what that walk feels like. It was around that time that our lovely Titus woman, Rita, introduced me to my friend Stephanie. What started as one simple coffee date turned into another just a few weeks later. And that's where we really began to see the Lord start to work. From just those 2 get-togethers, God began to grow a community, and today that community has grown, to include 130 moms across the state. Just want to get through a couple of these because they're huge. It began as a group for mom raising kids with Down syndrome, but it has expanded and now includes moms of children with all kinds of special needs. We meet monthly, we laugh, we cry, we share the things only other special needs moms can understand. And it's such a gift to have people who get it with no judgment. Most of you know that we just wrapped up our second retreat, and the women are leaving changed. Many of them don't share the same faith as Stephanie and myself, but they've experienced God's goodness through the friendships, the community, and the love that's shared. So going back to Job 2:10, should we only accept the good things from the hand of God and never the bad? The answer is no. The American Heritage Dictionary defines bad as not achieving an adequate standard. Now, I'm not downplaying life's disappointments at all. The pain, the confusion, the frustration, those are all valid and they're real. But is bad always bad? We often measure what's bad against our own desires or the world's standards. And when we do that, it makes sense to, at the very least, want to avoid it, let alone receive it with opening arms, considering it a gift. But when we measure it against God's goodness, even our pain has purpose. Just watched a video the other day. Actually, it was a short documentary. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's on VidAngel. It's like 30 minutes. It's called The Luckiest Man on Earth. And so it's about a guy who receives a life-altering diagnosis. He calls his wife and he says, he had to go away for the appointment. So he calls his wife and he's like, honey, I have this really great news. So of course she gets excited thinking he's gonna give her something really encouraging. And he says, well, I just found out that I have ALS. And so for those of you that don't know, that is a devastating disease to walk through that has a lot of suffering, and it's terminal. It's an awful diagnosis. So of course now she's in tears and she's, I don't understand, like, how is this good news? This doesn't make any sense. And he tells her, well, I found out that the type that I have progresses really slowly. And the documentary then goes on to kind of talk about how when he was in the doctor's office that he had thanked the doctor because he finally had an answer as to why he hadn't been feeling good for so long, but also because of the news that his disease was very slow in progression. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy is literally walking out Romans 8:28. Because how many of us would receive a terminal diagnosis and immediately think to call it good? I'm not sure that I would. So many of us have heard this verse 1,000 times, but I really want you to hear it today. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called to his purpose. When you live your life authentically for Christ, no matter what happens, his plan is always good and fueled by perfect love and wisdom. And perfect love can never make a mistake. Nothing is outside of God's will.
Amen.
Over the last few years, I have seen that verse come alive, and seeds of faith have been planted everywhere. Whether it was the nurses or the doctors hearing worship music blaring through my iPhone in the OR, the staff in the NICU watching me pray over Kayla every single night before I left, our NICU nurse, Abby, who continues to be a part of our lives, the cleaning lady that intentionally stayed in our room for an extra long time while we were listening to a sermon one day, the woman next to me in the ER that I got to pray for and give my Bible to when I was there for a second round of preeclampsia, the ladies in my mom's group, or the beautiful mom of Parker who experienced an entire life change because we showed her love when she needed it most. If you ask me now, if I would go back and change anything, I would say absolutely not. Because I have seen the hand of God woven through every single detail, and it's all because he gave us the most perfect, unexpected gift that we have ever received. I used to grieve that thought that I might not ever be an empty nester. No parent ever expects that. We picture the day when our kids are grown and we're traveling, we're enjoying quiet mornings, clean house, having a whole conversation with another adult without getting interrupted every 5 minutes. But I don't grieve that anymore. Kayla has completely changed my perspective on almost everything. I get to raise a little girl who will never lose her childlike innocence. Every birthday, every holiday will always be magical. There will always be laughter and wonder and joy in our home, the kind of joy that only someone like Kayla can bring. It's no surprise to us that God gave us the middle name Joy before we knew anything about this girl. How could I grieve that? I've been given a built-in best friend for life, and I have no doubt that she'll keep me young at heart forever. As for Nick and I, we trust that the Lord will continue to be gracious and merciful and give us the time together that we need, whether it's now or in the future. I don't know what each of you might be walking through today, but I do know this. Every single one of us has faced, or you will face, something unexpected. And when you do, I hope that you'll remember my story, not because of me, but because it's a glimpse of God's perfect design and plan. And it's not just for my life, but for your life as well. I hope that you can walk away confident that no matter what comes your way, that He will meet you in those moments, and all He asks of you is to be still and to know that He is God. And in His perfect timing, He will show you all of His glory through any season of wondering and waiting.